Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Abir, and today we are going to discuss the histology of a peripheral nerve. So the learning objectives are, at the end of this presentation, students should be able to understand the basic structure of nerve. They should be able to identify the connective tissue coverings, that is, epineurium, perineurium, and endoneurium. And finally, they should draw and label a histological section of a peripheral nerve. So as it's already been discussed before, that nervous system is divided into two components, that is the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system comprises of brain and spinal cord, whereas the peripheral nervous system contains all other peripheral nerves and their associated ganglia. So what is the function of peripheral nervous system? Number one, it connects the central nervous system to its organs, limbs, skin. So basically it is connecting the central nervous system to your organs, your limbs, and to your skins. And then it allows the brain and spinal cord to receive and to send information everywhere in the body. It receives information and it sends information to every part of the body. It carries sensory and motor information to and from the central nervous system. Then finally, it also regulates the involuntary body functions like the heartbeat and breathing. So these are the broad four functions connecting the central nervous system to whole of your body organs, skin, limbs, then receiving and giving the information, plus controlling the involuntary body functions like heartbeat and breathing. So these are actually the peripheral nerves. For example, your radial nerve, femoral nerve, tibial nerve, these are actually in the periphery, therefore called peripheral nerves. This is the basic structure of a nerve. This whole is a nerve comprising of bundles or fascicles of axons. Then if we go through a single fascicle, there are multiple number of fibers, nerve fibers in it. This green one is a fascicle which consists of multiple number of nerve fibers, and when we see a single nerve fiber, you can appreciate the axon. So this is the broad structure of nerve consisting of multiple fascicles, and when you look into the fascicle, there are bundles and bundles and number of nerve fibers. So each nerve fiber has its own axon. Now as you can see, the nerves are made up of axons, Schwann cells, and the connective tissue coverings. The nerves are made up of axons, the Schwann cells, and its respective coverings. They are surrounded by many folds, and these folds are making layers around the nerve fiber and are also called neurolemma or myelin sheet. So when it is covered with a myelin sheet, it is called a myelinated nerve fiber, whereas sometimes it is not covered or not fully covered it will be referred to as unmyelinated axon. So this is the axon, which is covered by number of layers called the neurolemma or the myelin sheet. It means it is a myelinated nerve fiber. You can appreciate the nodes of Ranvier for electrical conduction. So this is the basic structure of a nerve, where there is a nerve, peripheral nerve. Let's say it's a tibial nerve or a radial nerve. Then it has multiple fascicles, and each fascicle has a number of nerve fibers, and when you appreciate a single nerve fiber, it has axon, which is covered by concentric layers or multiple layers of the myelin sheet. So this is the basic structure of a nerve. Now we move on to the microscope. So what will you appreciate under the microscope? This is the cross section, whereas this is the longitudinal section. In the cross section, you will be able to appreciate number 1, epineurium. The epineurium is the layer of dense irregular connective tissue and contains blood vessels, lymphatics and nerves. This epineurium and is covering whole of the nerve. The outermost layer, epineurium, which is the dense irregular connective tissue containing blood vessels, lymphatics and nerves, and is the outermost layer covering the whole of the nerve. Then inside the nerve there was a fascicle. This is one fascicle, this is second, this is third. And when you appreciate a single fascicle here, it is called the perineurium, which is also surrounded by a connective tissue, and this is connected to each other by zona occludens, so it actually makes a sleeve around the nerve fibers and functions as active diffusion barrier, also known as nerve barrier. So the epineurium, which was the outermost covering consisting of blood vessels, lymphatics and nerves, then covering the nerve fibers is the perineurium, which also functions as a diffusion barrier or also called the blood nerve barrier. Then finally we have the endoneurium. The endoneurium is also a thin layer of connective tissue and contains delicate collagen fibers, reticular fibers, fibroblasts, macrophages, capillaries, mast cells. So individual nerve fiber is surrounded by a endoneurium. So first there was epineurium, the outermost covering. Then secondly, perineurium, covering like a sheet. Then thirdly, endoneurium. And in the longitudinal section, you can appreciate this is a single nerve fiber, here is a single nerve fiber, here is another single nerve fiber, which is covered through the myelin sheet. So these gaps are basically the endoneurium. These gaps, white gap, this gap, this gap, this is basically the endoneurium, as endoneurium is the connective tissue covering each of the nerve fiber. So this is a single nerve fiber covered by endoneurium. Now we'll look further into the sections under the microscope. Here you can appreciate the green. This is the irregular connective tissue, this green one. You can appreciate this is the epineurium, the outermost covering around each fascicle or a bundle. epineurium. Then we have perineurium. This leaf-like covering surrounding each of the fascicle. This is one fascicle surrounded by perineurium. And then the endoneurium. These are the axons, and when we have magnified it, you can see the connective tissue. So each of the nerve fiber is covered by this green color endoneurium. So as you can appreciate, epineurium covering the whole of the bundle, perineurium covering each of the fascicle, and then the endoneurium, which is the innermost covering. Then I would like you to watch a video just to get an overview and summary of the peripheral nerve.